Alright, I'm sitting in my car and I'm thinking about things that you could do while your engine is out. So if you take it to a machine shop, you may be looking at several months of work. And during that time, your car will be up in the air. It's time to get to work. Let the machine shop do what they do, and then you got to do what you've got to do. Okay, so I'll go through some of the things that I had to do. So, starting with the seats. How do your seats look? My seats, if I were to go back and forth, which they're not moving now, but my seats moved about this much. And it had bushings that were disintegrated in the actual worm gear track. So there's spacers in the front and there's spacers in the back, and when they're not there, every time you stop your car, the seat will move forward, this much. Very annoying and probably not very safe. So it's a good time to take the seats out. If you have wear on some of the leathers and things like that, get those fixed. Upholstery shopper, that's a DIY also. So with the seats out, you really have a good chance, you have easy access to the center area here. And one thing is the shifter bushings here. And you have to basically take a lot of this off. But you can rebuild your shifter. Mine had that same plastic that was disintegrated in here, was in the shifter bushings. And those were, very, very worn, very, very sloppy. And there's a reoccurring theme here while you're in there. So while the seats are out, while you're in here, I implore you to look into your center tunnel here. There's another hatch back here, but there's bushings that support the throttle. It's not a cable, it's a rod like an aircraft, and there's plastic bushings, 3 of them, that support that. So when you give it gas here, that the rod is actually supported as it's moving back and forth. If you don't have those bushings, they tend to disintegrate also. You could get a stuck throttle, and that wouldn't be very fun. And then also, if those support bushings aren't there, when you give it gas, that rod will bend a little bit. So you're not going to have an accurate throttle off position. So the throttle off position hits a micro switch, which puts it into like an idle mode. And when you give it full throttle, there's a full throttle switch that's attached to the throttle body, and you're not going to get maximum power when you give it gas. So having those bushings in the tunnel help your accuracy of your throttle inputs. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, while you're in there, you've spent the time and money to have your engine rebuilt. Change your fuel lines that run through the center tunnel also. It's a lot easier to do it all at one time. Don't forget, the rubber on the car is all old. The fuel lines were not really rated for ethanol gas, which we have now in the US. It's mostly E10. And you have to think of it long term. Like I said in my other videos, will the fuel lines last another 30 years? Probably not. So do your fuel lines. I called Len Cummings. I'll leave his email in the description below. He makes lines from basically the fuel rail of the engine, of the intake, like where the fuel filter is, that will go down to the tunnel when they come out just below the shift coupler, and then they will run through here, and then they come out down by between the suspension arms, and then they snake over the steering rack and connect. One connects to the tank and one connects to the fuel pump. If you're down there, now's a good time to do your fuel pump. And by now, if you were doing your engine, probably a good idea, you probably should have drained your tank. And then check the inside of the gas tank. And then there's the huge Allen key there on the bottom. That's your fuel strainer. Replace that too. All of that stuff is not going to last another 30 years. So while the engine's out, you're going to want to drive your car once it's back together. Do that while your car is apart. Okay, other little fun things to do is your gauge lighting, your interior lighting. I mean, these are in your headlights, but these LED lights are much brighter than stock. The stock ones are very, 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 very dim. You really can't even see them at night. I mean, the car was designed in the early 60s, so, you know, we've made some definite improvements since then. So I'll leave the description for this manufacturer down in the description also. They make these in bright white, and they make them in a vintage color also. And I wanted bright white because, I don't know, my eyes are bad. I can't see. I wanted maximum brightness out of all of my stuff. And it doesn't draw as much power, you know, like these. These, you pop that out and you can, it's like a torpedo bulb. So I have those running. Well, what else? The stereo, the Continental that everyone likes is the Porsche one too. Blaupunkt makes one. I'm fine with this. And that really eliminates the amp from under the seat too. So it's good. For me, it was good enough for this car. And then other things like, you know, do your windows work? Does your door open good? My car had another piece of disintegrated plastic that basically locked the doors. It was an arm. So good time to get into the doors. You know, no sense driving your car around and not being able to lock your doors. You know, how does your sunroof work? I had to refurbish my sunroof. Even if it's okay, clean and lube it, right? You got the time. And then little conveniences like, you know, like a Renline phone mount here, which works pretty good. You know, we need our driver aids now. Just if you take your road trips, having mapping is good. And that will tie into the stereo with Bluetooth. So you'll be able to, you know, hear your instructions also. And, oh, one other thing. While you're in here doing your throttle bushings for the throttle rod. Let me get some light here. Here. Get down in here. Check your bushings. They're kind of a pain to get to, but if the seat is out, you could get in there a lot easier. It's another thing to do while you're in there. So you have bushings in here. They're made of antiquated plastics. So there's modern plastics that will go in there, as well as brass bushings. So another thing I did on the outside of the car was, you know, if you think about it compared to a modern car, those are really small lights, which I can't step on the brake light too, but this one has the high mounted light. Being a post 86, they have the third light. That's not a lot of lighting surface area. And again, those were pretty dim, so I replaced those with LED as well as this one with LED. Because while your engine's out, I took my bumper off, so I had access to refurbish, you know, the light box there. And then another thing you could do if you want to lighten the car a little bit, Redline makes the, you can dump the crash tubes. So the US crash tubes are heavy. They kind of they're able to spring in and out. The Euro tubes are, they crush once and then you have to reuse them. So there's a, you know, couple pounds per crash tube. And then coming here, people don't like them, but I drive at night. I use the Odette collection silver lights, and I like these a lot. You can see well. I'm pretty sure the actual light element on that is the same as a Harley Davidson. It's the same way as what I put in my Harley Davidson, and I like the silver ones mostly because, turn this off, mostly because I could replace them cheap and they're not proprietary. So yeah, I'll just go on Amazon and for 50 bucks I'll get whatever the latest and greatest is on these. So again, for the purists out there, this had the H5s. Those really suck, and man, this makes a world of difference. Let's see, other things I did on mine. I took these off and I refinished my wiper arms. And then the little fresh air vent. That had nicks and it's aluminum underneath. So I refinished that. And I put on that little scoop. I'm in Florida, so I need all the fresh air I could get. Other things that you really should do if the engine is out, maybe I can show you here, your oil lines that run, so you have an oil cooler here, most of you know this, and you have oil lines that run up and over and then down, and then they're running all through here back to your tank, which would be back here. This is your dry sump tank, right? So in here, all of the lines, there's two lines, to and from. These lines in here will be misting oil. All up in here will be dirty from oil blow-by, blowing through the little crimps and things like that. And the rubber will be dry. Then here there's another thermostat and then hard lines that run here. Someone probably, at some point in the car's past, they went to put the lift points under here and they crushed those tubes. And check for that, because if you have an oil cooler up front, it's pretty important that that oil makes it to the oil cooler, especially for the warmer climates. Those lines terminate up here, the hard lines, and then there's soft lines that run through here to the oil cooler. So while the engine is apart and out, check those lines, replace them if necessary. I have mine up here. One of them was completely crushed. Where was it crushed? I don't know if I have a good... Right there. So that's about half of the line capacity or more. So I did replace the soft lines in here with the stainless steel ones, and I did refurbish my oil cooler. Important. Well, the main thing is, between the fuel lines and the oil cooler, you just spent a lot of money in your engine to have it rebuilt. There's no sense in not keeping it cool, and then there's no sense in eventually having an engine fire because you've left dry fuel lines in there. And then the big one, oh boy, while the engine is out also, and I'm just talking chassis here, do your suspension. Definitely the rear. Do your banana arms. It's a lot easier, especially with a G50 gearbox. to do it while the engine is out. There's hardly any clearance between the banana arm bolts and the transaxle. So I'll come over here. So I'm working on my three-wheeler. All right, I'll show you something. This is a bonus video. So here's a banana arm. This is a passenger's banana arm. So this one's an original one. So you want to remove these. You got to pull these off. The bushings. They're not easy to get off, but there's videos on it. So you want to remove them. And then this is another while you're there. Get the wheel bearing. Right? So this comes off. So that's a time when, okay, it kind of snowballs into the brakes, into the parking brake, into the wheel bearing, into that bushing. But you'll really hate doing this when the engine is in the car. You really will. So the orientation in the car would be like this. Okay, this is where your alignment adjustments are here. And then the bushing here that holds to the torque tube area, torsion bar tube. Okay, so don't mean to be a bummer on that one, but you'll thank me later. And then, you know, you'll have to do your own alignment. I use these Paco Motorsport stands. There's 4 of them. So I use these things to do my alignment. Work pretty good. Okay, so I guess I'll end the video right here. Just, there's more to this. If I think of some more, I'll do a part 2 to this. But this is definitely when you want to get the Wayne Dempsey book, the 101 Projects. A lot of these are covered in his book. And, yeah. If you have any comments or ideas for other videos for these Carrera 3.2s, let me know in the comments section below. Also, a lot of this applies to other air-cooled Porsches as well. You know, these cars are very similar to 911 SCs. Really, they share the same shell. And really, all the engines are cousins of one another. Basically, the same design. So if you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up. And catch you on the next one. Bye.